noise is calming down back there. So I'm going to call our meeting to order for the town of Greenville. This is our town board meeting on March 26th. I believe it is 6:02 p.m. We'll start off with a roll call. Mike Woods.
Here.
Mark Strobel.
Here.
Jack Anderson's here. Andy Peters.
Here.
Dean Culbertson.
Here.
All are shown to be present. Verify public notice. This is my verification. Was everything properly noticed for the meeting? Thank you. And need a meeting to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second that.
Mark's given the motion to approve the agenda. Andy's given second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Agenda's approved. Public comment forum section. Anybody here wishing to speak on public comment before we move into the rest of the meeting? Please raise your hand or stand. And I don't see anybody, so I'll make a motion to close public comment forum section.
Second.
Second's been given by Mark. All in favor to close public comments, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Public comment forum section's closed. That moves us into new business. We have a discussion and possible action. This is for an agreement for professional consulting services with Forrest and Associates, LLC. This is to assist in completing our incorporation documentation for the town of Greenville. So I know that Supervisor Strobel has a couple of updates he'd like to see put in there, or questions about some things. So go ahead, Mark.
On page 3, the first paragraph, it states this element involves the preparation and review of proposed village budgets. I was just wondering if that's supposed to be town budgets.
So Michael, I know you haven't been around for our budget process or anything, but you're probably familiar with what that process. So should that state town or village? So it's the proposed village budget. So are they going to be looking at our financial stability?
They'll be looking at our budgets, but it may be that process. We'll have to verify if it's supposed to be village or town. But
Okay.
they'll be looking at our financials and our budget process, as well as
Right.
how that'll change when we move forward if incorporation takes place.
Okay, so it's more about looking at our financial well-being. So we'll get the right word there. Mark, you've got a couple others?
On page 4, 1, 2, 3. The fourth paragraph under town responsibilities, the town shall be responsible for obtaining all relative mapping related to the submittal from all sources, including but not limited to East Central Wisconsin East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, and it says Winnebago County. I believe that should be Outagamie County.
Correct. As we line out Outagamie.
And then under the paragraph under additional work, the last sentence says town shall be agreed to, whenever possible, terms of additional work as requested by the town shall be agreed to in writing between the village, it states, and Forrest and Associates. I believe that should be town.
I believe so. Yes.
That's the only items I could find question with.
So Wendy, can I see the copy that you have that's prepared for signature? It says village on there? Okay, so we'll get those corrected? Okay. So the approval for this, if there's a motion for approval, would include those changes. Is there anything else for this? I have one myself. When we interviewed some of the other municipalities that have used Forrester and Associates, they've put in a bullet for an item not to exceed the overall cost. And I would like to request that be added as well. I know that will be a conversation that we'll have to have with Forrest and Associates to make sure. I know that conversations with the Village of Harrison, that they put in a not to exceed of $25,000. So I would request that same number. And I will make a motion to approve the agreement with Professional Consulting Services, Forrester Associates, to help with completing the incorporation documentation for the town of Greenville, with the items that Supervisor Strobel has pointed out that need correction, as well as the addition of a not to exceed statement of $25,000. Any other questions or comments? I'm not hearing any, so we'll go forward with our vote. All in favor to approve should say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item 4A is approved. Takes us to 4B, which is a presentation. This is an incorporation overview of the general information on the pros and cons of incorporation. So Michael's going to take us through this. If anybody has questions, Michael, do you want them to wait at the end or just ask as they're presented?
Yeah, I guess the idea is we're going to just do a presentation, not really necessarily Q&A, but if people have questions, I guess I'd ask if you wait to the end, and then we can record those questions and then be able to properly respond to people moving forward.
Okay.
This will be posted on the town's website, and if there are more questions, then we can prepare written answers for those if they take a little more time to answer.
So understand that we're new to this. This is our first time going through the incorporation process. So there might be some questions you have we might not be able to answer at this time, but we will get back to you and get answers to those and get back to the citizens as a whole with those. So Michael, take it away.
All right. So thank you again this evening presentation on the Town of Greenville Incorporation overview. So first we're going to talk about why incorporate. There's a number of reasons for that. One is to preserve the town of Greenville's identity and character. We have a very unique character. People are passionate about who we are, and they want to hold on to that. It helps us make local planning decisions, improve our ability to attract and retain businesses. Right now, we have to go through county zoning for a number of actions because we're a town. If we become a village, it eliminates essentially almost everything that the county currently oversees. There's still a few things that they do that they have jurisdiction over, but it would give us more control and speed up the process for approvals and development activities. We preserve Greenville's borders and protect the future of our community. Again, we're a 36 square mile town, 6 by 6, nice even square. It preserves those boundaries. It would just help with planning efforts as well as future development. It also will help with attracting and retaining businesses to the region and promote infrastructure improvements. If development and developers know what to expect when they come in, they know what their infrastructure is, they know what our borders are, they know what we're planning, what our vision is. If we aren't incorporated and all of a sudden other incorporated villages start taking land and incorporating them into their communities, it affects how we can plan and properly attract people to give them that security if they know what to expect when they come through. Have the ability to move more fiscally sound and finance projects more effectively and efficiently. Ability to receive a better bond rating, and villages and cities have more access to state and federal grants, aids, and shared revenues than towns do. So there are a number of financial benefits, a number of private economic development benefits, as well as character and personal preferences for people that care about their community.
Before you move forward, just a couple things to add on to these bullets. Just discussions with citizens living here for the number of years I have. The rest of the board can attest to this as well. With preserving the town of Greenville's identity and character, it's important to our citizens to maintain the level of services that we have, but also do that in a cost-effective manner. So we've got the benefit of having a very low tax rate in Greenville, and people move here because of that. They see what people pay in taxes here, and it's a desirable characteristic of the town. Along with those low taxes, though, we are still able to provide the services that people are expecting in a community this close to a larger city and metropolitan area. As far as the planning and zoning decisions, there's a number of different, I will say, hoops that people have to go through currently because we are a township. That we need to go through county approval, so this would make things a lot more efficient and more desirable for people to come to Greenville with their new businesses. We've heard that before with other TIF districts. We're actually up against some competition there for municipalities that are incorporated villages and cities. And we're losing out to those. We're losing some potential businesses that could be coming to Greenville and populating our now expanded business park, and could be actually populating some other areas of the community as well, helping us offset some of the residential growth. That's kind of one of the key components of this. So we want to make sure that we're maintaining our borders and maintaining our potential tax base that's out there in many of our areas of the town, but protect our identity overall. The second bullet from the end, the ability to receive a better bond rating. If we are a township and remain unincorporated, we always have a potential to be annexed in the future. So those that set the bond rating see that as a threat and an issue, and we are not able to meet our full potential in our bond rating. Once we incorporate, we receive a higher bond rating, which means our interest rates could be lowered as well with a higher bond rating. So any debt that we incur in the future or make adjustments to, we potentially get a better interest rate because of a higher financial rating. Thank you, Michael.
So again, these are just the pros, kind of what incorporation was, kind of a summary of the previous slide, and Chairman Anderson explained. But it protects our borders, preservation of the tax base, zoning authority would increase our extraterritorial authority, land division autonomy. We have complete village powers. Our bonding is much better. We have more options for tax increment financing, bond ratings, and more grant opportunities.
Just go all the way from one side to the other, you'll get it. Or there's a blue arrows in the lower right. You want the other one. There you go.
Cons of incorporation, depending on your viewpoint. Two main ones: elimination of the town meeting of electors, which approval of the tax levy, land purchase, sales, and town facility construction, as well as the authority to fund private enterprise without town electors' approval.
So before you go forward on this, I know that there's some that are very interested in what we have for a township. It's often said that a township is one of the last remaining elements of a true democratic society. The town electors are capable of calling a special town meeting. Our annual meeting is similar to that, where they can come in and actually cast their own votes. It's not up to the elected officials. When we move on from a township to an incorporated municipality, so that would go away. So that's there, but that's why you do elect officials that represent the citizens of the community, and that's why we're open and available for conversations to find out what the true concerns are of everyone and what people's thoughts are. So we should be representing you, and that's what we'd be here for in the future as we become a village. Jim, if you have a question, I'd be happy to have you ask it.
I'm not understanding what the second bullet point is.
Private enterprise? Michael, you might be better at this than me, but I can give it a shot otherwise.
Yeah, I'm actually not familiar with the regulations regarding that.
So some of that, what that entails, Jim, would be around private enterprise. And this is to my understanding, and if anybody else in the meeting room is willing to speak on this, feel free. This has to do with the fact of whether we want to have a private enterprise help us with water and sewer type thing, which we do have water and sewer now, but if we wanted to have some type of private enterprise help us out with providing that in parts of the municipality. So that's just a general bullet statement overall for pluses and minuses of towns and villages. So the water and sewer was just one example for that.
So now we'll talk about the process for incorporation. First, it starts out, we need 2 electors and freeholders to publish a notice with an accurate legal description of the territory to be incorporated. After that, no earlier than 10 days and no later, a petition for incorporation is then circulated. The petition must be signed by 50 electors and freeholders, and then the petition is filed with the Allegheny County Circuit Court.
So those that aren't aware, we already have done bullet number 1. So we've had a couple of town citizens that have posted notification as of Friday. If you look at Friday's Post Crescent, notification was posted in there for the intention to petition for incorporation. So we've kicked off that process, and it takes 10 days before we can start our petitioning. So the petition is being drafted now and being readied for signatures. We can start that, I believe we can start getting signatures on April 2nd, which is 10 days from March 23rd. We have 10 days then to get 50 signatures. So these have to be signatures of electors and landowners, so freeholders, I think they're referred to as. It means if you rent in the community that you do not have permission to sign the petition. So they have to be landowners and also electors. That petition, like I said, has 10 days. So if we start April 2nd, probably should wait till April 3rd to make sure we hit that 10-day window. Needs to be turned over to the next step by April 12th. So I really want to make sure that we're inside those boundaries. So April 3rd to April 11th for those that are interested in helping us get signatures on this is what we're looking for.
Allegheny County Circuit Court then sets the hearing to determine if standards for the corporation are met. The standards are very objective, based on population density. Required to have at least 5,000 people within 4 square miles. An accurate map, legal description is required. So the very minimal requirements that the Circuit Court looks at and reviews. From there, if the Circuit Court judge determines that the petition meets those criteria, they then send it to the Department of Administration. Notices are sent to adjacent communities. The applicant petitioner, which would be the town, submits a fee of $25,000 and formal petition to the Department of Administration. Once the fee is paid, the DOA has 180 days to make a recommendation. This process can take anywhere between 12 to 18 months, depending on how the timing goes. So they have essentially 6 months to review the proposal. If the DOA does find that we meet the proposal, the qualifications, then they go out and let us go out for referendum. What they're looking for in the state statutes to incorporate is compactness and homogeneity, territorial beyond the core, tax revenue, level of services, impact of the remainder of the town if necessary, and impact on the metropolitan community. So they're really looking at not only how the incorporation will impact the town itself, but the surrounding land and municipalities within close to our borders. So they're really looking at a lot of different things. That's why it takes a long time for them to evaluate. And as part of that process and the submission that the town has to go through, there's a lot of information that's part of the contract. That's why we're working with Forrest Associates to get the right information and process it and evaluate it. DOA then conducts a public hearing. They provide the results of the investigation to the Incorporation Review Board. The IRB presents final recommendations to the head of the DOA, and if they are recommended for incorporation, it's sent back to Allegheny County Circuit Courts. From there, then the judge orders a referendum to be held, which the electors will vote on the question of do we incorporate or not. If the majority votes yes, then the Tory becomes incorporated.
Perfect.
And that's the process.
Short and sweet. Summarize that, and if you are interested in talking with community citizens, going out and getting a petition signed, the short and sweet of this is there's really 4 steps to this process. Obviously, the notice that's been posted in the petition is the first step. The second step would be to make sure that we meet the criteria at the county level. The county sends that on to the state level, the DOA, where they review the impacts of not only the municipality that's asking to be incorporated, but the neighboring communities. If everything looks good from there, they would send that on with their recommendation to incorporate and back to the county. County Circuit Court judge would make a recommendation or make a request for a referendum to be held. That would be a binding referendum, I believe, if I read everything correctly. That would be a binding referendum, so whatever the electors vote is what would stay. So a majority vote is required to vote yes on this, and that takes us through basically the 4 major steps. The petition by the citizens, the county needs to look at the criteria, the state needs to review it, make sure that the impacts are all they're all on the up and up, and then it comes back to the county for them to require a referendum of the municipality, and the referendum is binding. Any other questions? Jim, like I said, we'll do the best we can to answer them, so feel free.
Larry, why don't you go?
So there's 36 square miles, we're a 6 by 6. That's okay, I just want to make sure that if it's recorded, people understand that.
Would it all happen at once? Or would only a portion of the township of Greenville? How would you do that?
Michael, do you want to take that or you want me to?
We're looking at evaluating going after the entire 36 square miles of township. Again, that's part of the evaluation that why we're contracting with Forrest and Associates to help us through that process to further evaluate the possibility of that.
Okay, so it's our desire to do the full township at once. There's been some neighboring communities in the Fox Valley that have gone through incorporation recently. They've had to go through other steps to basically incorporate just a subset of their community and then either re-annex the community back in or have gone through a consolidation procedures, which is what Fox Crossing went through. But we're attempting, and our desire is to go and get the entire township in the incorporation, so the full 36 square miles.
I guess the only second question I might have, a township or a village, are there any downsides for agribusiness in a village versus a township as you look forward to the future?
So Michael,
That would be,
go ahead.
That would still be with the elected officials and the planning process and the ordinances that are set in place. There's really no difference between the town and the village there. It's really a matter of, if anything, we have more control as a village to preserve those areas or develop as we see fit. So it's really a matter of zoning process, land use planning, and what the people want to see. Currently, we're in the process of going through an update to our comprehensive plan, and that'll be part of that process of evaluating what our future land uses look like, what's the vision for the town over the next 10 and 20 years, and do we want to see development happen, and how quickly, and how much of the land we want to preserve for agriculture, and so forth. So that's really all still lies with the community, whether you're a town or a village. You still have full control over that.
Mr. Julius.
On that same note, however, one of the questions I was going to pose comes up now as well, and that is, there are a lot of things that can play into whether or not you'll be successful at farmland preservation. And one of those would be there's certain things that if you do, it's a no-no, like letting sewer and water run across the land. That's the problem that the Julius would have in the Midland Park, because no land trust will other than later want to touch that land. So the people we're seeking advice from, do you think we could inject that question that they might have already some knowledge? What might be the implications to farmland preservation?
Absolutely. So I would suggest that you get a document together, written or otherwise, and our town staff can make sure that we bring that forward to the people that we're working through and as consultants for this, and make sure we get you an answer to that.
That could be really important.
Okay, I appreciate the question. All right. Anybody else? Jim, you had a couple?
Yeah, I understand the reason why this has become a little bit more of a hot button issue, but the way the presentation lays out is it's almost like a no-brainer. If that's the case, why haven't we done this already?
That's a good question. Actually, I'm glad you asked that. I can tell you that personally, I've had some discussions with staff, previous staff at the town about, should we become a village? I mean, there's some definite pros around this, right? We had a lot longer list for pros than we did for cons. And one of the reasons in the past was that there's a lot of services that we would need to offer as a village, and that is actually incorrect. We've identified that the town of Greenville provides all the services that are required as a village. So with that said, our taxes will not change because of additional services that need to be added. That's a very fair statement to make, and one that should be stated, because I know that there's going to be a number of questions about how it's going to impact our town citizens and hopefully future village citizens in their pocketbooks and wallets and purses. So why hasn't this been done in the past? We've got 69 years of town board, Greenville town board experience sitting in front of you right now. I requested that information just because I knew this question would come up. 69 years, and just a few weeks ago, we voted unanimously in support of this. It's the right thing to do. It's most likely well overdue. It's going to protect us in the future from potential annexation. It's protecting the tax base that we have been planning and developing for, and it's going to allow the community to keep its desired look and feel and appeal, as well as that low tax rate that people also like from the town of Greenville. Do you have a second question, Jim?
I do have a couple other ones. You mentioned the steps along the way, and I'm sure you said it, but what do you estimate the timeline would be from moving forward now at the time when we have the town finalized?
Yeah, it's really up to those entities that are in between us. So we can do and control what we have in front of us, and that's to get those signatures on that petition. Those are due April 12th. I'd like to get them in right on April 12th, or if not, April 11th, right? So that's what we can control. Between now and when we'd have the election, the next thing we can control would be all those things at the county level and the state level. So other communities that have gone through this in a similar fashion, it's taken anywhere from 12 to 16, 18 months. My desire or hope would be that we'd be looking at this on our spring election of 2019. That's not to say that's when it's going to happen. That's just the desire on moving these things along as efficiently as possible. That's why we have just approved going through and using a consulting service, make sure we've got our documentation organized and in order, ready for the county and state entities to review. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Good.
And then have we already basically, assuming that we don't get a red flag, we've already decided to go ahead and make the application?
So that process is already going forward. So the next step is for us is to draft our petition paperwork, which is on its way and ready to go. And then we're just waiting for our date so that we can start going out and getting signatures on that petition. So yeah, other documents that need to be drafted, that's also why we're bringing in this consulting organization so that we make sure that we fill them out properly. But yes, there's already a good start on those. We have some prime examples from our neighbors that have just gone through this that we can utilize and make sure that we're following everything that we should be. So, go ahead.
We're going to spend $25,000 as part of this application.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need any community involvement in order to authorize spending that money?
So you asked if there is any community involvement needed to spend the $25,000 for the processing fee. That's why you've elected us as officials, and we'll go forward with that as necessary, depending on where we're at with the process and everything what the county gives us back. We might have some rework to do there, hopefully not, and that will move us right to the state level and the need to pay that fee.
Is the fee actually 25 or 50,000? Because there seem to be two figures, one for the consultants and one for the application. Is that one and the same or two?
So there are two different things there. So if you were listening at the earlier part of the meeting, there's a fee for these consultants. They have an hourly rate, $145 an hour, not to exceed $25,000. Okay, so the fee that you see in the presentation is separate. That is a fee from the state of Wisconsin that they require to be paid. That kind of covers all their administrative work to go through all this.
So it's really 50,000.
Potential for 50,000. So that saying that not to exceed means we will not go to that threshold, beyond that threshold. Our neighboring communities that have used this same group for consulting did not even get close to using 25,000. So that's why we have negotiated and talked about an hourly rate so we can use them as necessary and where their expertise is needed. So good question. So there's also some other fees in there, Larry, just to be full disclosure on this. Obviously, there's some legal fees. We'll be working with our attorneys and drafting some of this paperwork as well. We need to get legal descriptions drawn up, so there's some engineering firms that need to be involved. So there's additional fees above and beyond that, but what those will be exactly is to be determined.
Basically, we have the money.
Correct, yes, we have the money. Mr. Julius.
I think we oftentimes think that we don't have a general progression of development. And most everybody probably
Well, you got to look at these things as two completely separate topics. So what you're referring to is the potential annexation of a portion of Ellington and Greenville to accommodate the request of future all-world Ford dealership that's been proposed over on the northwest portion of Greenville. So completely separate topic. The incorporation has been something that's been discussed off and on by the board. Now is the time, and now is a perfect opportunity to go forward with this. Actually, as I stated before, we're probably well overdue. I've heard that comment from other committees of the town when we've talked about the potential for incorporation. It is well overdue. So there are some legal things that called precedents on these. So getting involved in the incorporation process and getting that started was important for the community as a whole. It's also important as part of the separate topic that has the single unique interdependency between the two, the fact that incorporated community, a village or city cannot be annexed. So there's some precedents there that we're making sure that we're following.
I don't know the significance of time to some aspects. However, if that Hortonville does, because I would think they're just doing what is natural for them to
Mhm.
try to do. And we have to do what's natural for us to try to do.
Correct?
And if that they pursue annexation of the Ford dealer, what can we do to, if we lose that battle, protect the integrity of the rest of the town for our future? That's being explored too.
Mhm. So I would,
That in its tracks.
correct. Now I know that you were here on Thursday evening, so and at the previous meeting. So I'll repeat for you and for those that weren't in attendance, those that are going to listen later. There's specifically this topic was covered that it's not up to the community as far as annexation. It's up to the property owners that are impacted by the annexation. Currently, there's several different types of annexation that the village of Hortonville could pursue for that. The one that they are discussing about pursuing is looking at the number of property owners impacted, and it would be a majority vote by those property owners for the annexation. So that's why we had the informational meeting the other evening, so that we could make sure that those landowners were informed of the facts, and it would be up to them to go against that. But I encourage you to review the precedence rules to see where we stand on that.
And thanks for refreshing my memory. I did hear from one town board member from Ellington today that they're pretty sure that every one of those potential uses is against.
Okay. So that's, yeah, Ellington has got their own people that are impacted by this, so I hope that and encourage them to reach out to their property owners to give them the information that's needed for them to make an informed and educated decision on this. So thank you for your comments. Any others? Yes, Jim? That's okay. That's what this is for.
Larry, I hadn't even thought about the partial incorporation issue, but I thought one of the concerns I have is about our ability to keep a certain amount of our town and rural, if that's what we choose to do. And I was just trying to think, are there good examples of villages that are, close to 36 square mile village? It just seems, when I think of villages, I think of Village of Hortonville, Village of Little Chute, that are all within other
Mm-hmm.
areas, but, so are there examples of villages that are, the traditional size town that were able to successfully live over?
Well, I looked to Michael to be the expert on that, but I don't know if I want to put him on the spot. So it's up to you, Michael, if you're able to answer this.
What I can say is I'm not familiar with around the area. Again, most of my career has been spent outside of Wisconsin. But what I can tell you from working in Illinois, what happens is the villages start small, but they grow through annexation processes. So those areas of town, unincorporated areas in the county area like we are, eventually will get eaten up over time by those villages. So they may start small, but they expand their borders rather fast and quickly. incorporate, we become a village, we would work with the surrounding communities to have border agreements that dictate, these are the areas that we will stay within our boundaries and we won't cross those lines to try to annex more into our community.
Jim, I think I can add to your question a little bit. If you look at some of our neighboring communities, like Fox Crossing that recently went through this, they tried to maintain the borders as they are, so they're pretty close to the 6x6 with a large lake/river, kind of running right through the middle. There's a number of communities around the Green Bay and Fox Valley area that have gone through the incorporation process to make sure that they maintain their borders as they are. And if you look at the history of Wisconsin and the growth of the rural communities, Hortonville's a perfect example of that. They've been incorporated for quite some time. Maybe some of you know the exact date or year that they incorporated. I believe it was well into the 1800s. They incorporated for different reasons, different desires at the time. It was, but along the same concept that they had a different idea, identity that was in a very compact area, and wanted to have their voices heard. And from that compact region, where the more agricultural, rural areas at the time were different and had their own ideas and their own identity. And so that's often why you have villages that are more compact and smaller in size. And then you've got those that now that are trying to maintain their borders to keep their identity, keep their best interests of their community in mind. And that's exactly one of the main reasons why Greenville wants to do this. Our best interest is in keeping Greenville, Greenville. We've got our Greenville, the Greenbelt area, the AEA area that we're wishing to protect. We've got our development that we want to work on and focus on and protect what we've built out as far as plans for that. We're going through the updates to our comprehensive plan, which you're welcome to be very involved in, and I imagine you will be as part of the Planning Commission. Building out where do we see our growth, both commercial, industrial, as well as residential.
One last question. Brought up the comp plan review. Does our status as a town/village make any difference with regard to whether we should delay that comp plan revision, or does either have an impact on each other?
So we, by statute, have to update our comp plan every so many years, and we're up against the years that we need to update that. So that needs to be updated, and it's a good, fair question. I think one thing that you were referring to there is if we update our comp plan, is it all for naught because we're going to become a village? And I would say it is not all for naught. It is very pertinent to update our comp plan now, and it will allow us, becoming a village, to follow through on that comp plan and the way that we desire to build out our community. So, good question, Larry.
Just had a quick question. From one or two of the previous meetings, once we file this petition, it seems, does that protect us while all this is going through legal questions and approval? Does that protect us then from annexation, or do we still could get, the landowners to, can they still annex during this process of 18 to 24 months?
So I'm not a legal expert by any means, but I've done some studying on this. There is something called the right of precedence that allows for Greenville to remain as a whole, as a township, as we go through the incorporation process, and all annexation petitions that are being requested after we get to the right step in this process would be on hold. If we are allowed to incorporate the full entity of what is Greenville, then those annexations would be canceled. I would imagine that, I don't know the correct terminology for it, but that right of precedence would speak on that. So if you wish to educate yourself, just look for that, State of Wisconsin right of precedence.
Thank you.
Ken?
I have in my hand here, it's called a Public Policy Forum, and it's with April 16th of 2015, and it goes into this title, what's the difference between a town, a village, and a city? It goes on and talks about different, we all know what different things are, but there's one paragraph I'm going to ask Michael to clarify for me. It goes on and says, finally, it is important to note that there is some room for a hybrid units of local government. Wisconsin, for example, towns have the option of adopting village powers, which enables them to establish a plan commission, create a comprehensive land plan, subdivide land, and so forth. Assuming village powers is done through the adoption of a resolution, which can be decided in a special or annual town meeting. Would you comment on that?
Michael, I can actually take that. The town of Greenville has had village powers for some time. So
We have them now,
we have them currently, yep. So
but those village powers do not help us with annexation.
they do not.
Okay, can you clarify that?
So it's basically, when you read through that, you talked about forming a planning commission to do subdividing and things like that. It's exactly the group that you were just on. So that those village powers brought forward many things, including the planning commission. And yep. So that, I'm glad I was able to answer that for you. Didn't put Michael on the spot again. Okay. Any other questions? So this will be, obviously it's already public knowledge since there was a posting in our local newspaper. If you get questions from citizens that you did not hear answers to tonight, I just ask that you bring them forward and ask them to contact the town hall. There'll be more informational meetings as we go through this. This presentation will be posted on our website, as well as other information as we move forward in our process. We wish to educate all the citizens on why this is a good thing for the community and why this is the right direction to go for Greenville's future. So if anybody has questions or concerns, bring them forward. Ask them to either present them yourself on their behalf or have them come to the town staff or town board meetings, and we'd be more than happy to satisfy them. All right. Michael, thank you for presenting the information. I really appreciate it. So our next steps in this will be to finish drafting our petition paperwork and then to get our 50 signatures into the county in due time. So appreciate everybody's questions and everything that you are interested in. Make sure that if you hear anything, just to bring them forward to the town so we can get them addressed. So, yep. Our technology savvy, Mr. Culbertson, sees that we're already in in the local paper. So, and I've already gotten some requests from media for conversation. So, it will definitely be out there on the news tonight.
And John, the Greenville Grange is the picture they're using.
In the Post Crescent.
Yeah. They're right there in that center.
So, thank you for all your questions this evening, and I appreciate everybody's time. As far as announcements, I think that's the big announcement, that we are moving forward with a unanimous vote from the town board to go forward with this incorporation, and look forward to all the endeavors that it takes to get there and the learnings that we're going to experience and making things the best they can be for the citizens of Greenville. With that, our next meeting will be on April 9th, which is the second Monday of April. I just remind everybody that there is a spring election on April 3rd. So make sure you get out and vote. Anything else? Any other announcements? I don't hear anybody, so I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mr. Strobel and seconded by Mr. Culbertson. All in favor to adjourn, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Meeting is adjourned at actually 6:47 p.m. Thank you.